Okay, so welcome to our first tutorial of the class. So we're going to jump right in, and then at the end I'll go over the project details in Canvas. So just to get started, Illustrator is a vector-based program, and that means the designs you make in here can basically be blown up to any size, like billboard size, and look great and not get pixelated. And the main difference between that and Photoshop is the pixelation. So this is a Photoshop image here. I'm gonna zoom in by just doing Control or Command on the Mac, plus, and you can see how that gets really pixelated when you zoom in. Now if we come into Illustrator and I have the project that we're gonna create and I zoom all the way in, it never gets pixelated, no matter how much you zoom in. It's always going to look great. So that's why for logos, for illustrations that you want to use for a lot of different things, Illustrator is the best choice. And part of this class and part of all the classes, I want you to think about which programs are going to work best for what you want to do and what you want to create. Okay, so this is what the final design I'm creating is going to look like, and yours should be different than mine. You should not copy mine or you will not get all of the credit for this assignment. So let's start a new one. So we're going to come to File, New, and you get this pop-up. So we just want the letter size, typical size. I'm going to make my orientation landscape, so portrait is the one that looks more like this, and landscape is the wider one. And we need 3 artboards because you're going to end up with 3 different versions of this illustration. So make the artboards 3, everything else looks okay in the default, and press create. So now we have these 3 separate artboards set up. With the artboard, it's only going to save what's in the box here. So if you want to move these artboards around, you can come to this artboard tool on the left-hand side, and you can click on one and move it around. You can make them smaller. I'm just going to give my artboards a little more space. And you'll see later in the gray area, we can kind of store stuff that we might use over and over again, or that if something we want to manipulate, we can make a copy of it and leave the original version out in this kind of gray area in the setup. So I'm showing you the basic techniques, right? What must be included in here. And you don't want to copy my example exactly. What you're going to do during the tutorial is you're going to take notes and you're going to watch it at least once through, and then you'll start to work on yours, and you can come back to the tutorial and come back to your notes to finish your design. But I really want you to be thinking about, while you're watching this tutorial and taking notes, how you're going to make yours creative. What are you going to do to make your design original? You know, you can start thinking about your career and education goals and what kind of stuff you want for your portfolio when you graduate from Pierce. Think about all that stuff. Think about how you're going to make a design that represents you and what you want to get out of this class and out of your degree. So that's not to be intimidating or make you feel like this is like the be-all end-all project, but just to start thinking about that stuff. If you have no idea, it's fine. Just make an awesome design that is different than mine, something unique, something creative. That's what I'm really looking for. So we're going to start with the basics to get everyone on the same page for the first 2 projects. So even if you're really great at Illustrator, it's always good to go back to the fundamentals. There's always new things you can learn. So I'm going to zoom into this one artboard. And you can press Control-0, and Control-0 will fill up your entire screen with the artboard that you've clicked on, and Control+ will zoom in, and Control- will zoom out. So we're going to start with the shape tools. We're going to make a rectangle, which is right here. And these are the shape tools, all the shape tools here. So under the rectangle, if we right-click, we can see all the different shape tools that we have. So most people go to the pen tool, which is this one here, which is kind of the most common tool in Illustrator to build complex objects, but you can actually build really complex objects with what we're doing today with the shape tools. So I'm going to take an ellipse, draw it out, and it automatically defaults to a white fill and a black stroke. So if you want to change that, you just click on here. You can come to your color palette. Now, you don't see everything open here, and this might be what yours looks like when you open it up. So if you want to see the colors, you need to go to Window, Color, and I like to move mine up here. And I also like to use swatches. So I like to add that to my color. And I'm going to keep the brushes open because we're going to use that later. So you can just pick a color to fill your object with, and you can also pick a different color to fill the stroke with. And there's different ways you can pick color. You can pick it from the color picker here. Let me go to the fill. Or you can pick it from the swatches. You can do a lot. There's different color themes that you can choose and add to your swatches, which are really great. So I encourage you to play around with that kind of stuff. So to get back to black and white, to the default here, we're going to be using color a lot, so this is important. You just press D on the keyboard, and that brings you back to black and white. To switch between the fill, which is this one on the top, and the stroke, you press X. So that's important because you don't want to have to come back here all the way over to the left every time to switch your fill and your stroke color. The stroke is just the outline, basically. And if you want no stroke, you can click on it, the stroke, and press this little none, which is the red slash there. So the reason you want to use the X key to switch back and forth is because you can pick this green color and then press X to have the stroke come in front, and then you can pick the stroke color. So you're not having to go back down here, switch them, and then come back up here and change the color again. It's just a way to work faster. So that's X to switch which one is on top, the fill or the stroke, and D to get back. Okay, so with the ellipse tool, we can make a perfect circle by holding the Shift key. So that drags a circle out from the corner, and then we can hold the Alt key to make it drag out from the center. So if you hold Alt and Shift, it's going to draw a circle from the center. Where before, when I held Shift, you can see it drags it from the corner. So that's just good if you're placing stuff. And then if you want to select and move this stuff around, this is another key command to learn is the selection tool, the V tool. So it's V on your keyboard, and that moves this around. You can also resize it, and if you want to keep it a circle and resize it, you hold Shift to keep what's called the aspect ratio. So hold Shift to keep it a circle. If you're not holding Shift, it's going to distort it. And then the direct, so that's the selection tool, the first one, that's V on the keyboard. The one below that is the direct selection tool, and that's A on the keyboard, another key command you might want to learn. And what that does is it moves these points. So these are called anchor points, and then the things coming out of them are called handles. So the direct selection tool is going to move these handles and anchor points, and you can really do a lot with just simple shapes, as you can see. And these key commands I really recommend learning, because then you could I press V on the keyboard and then you can move it around. We want to create a bunch of circles, and then we're going to make one large shape. So I'm just going to make a couple circles all kind of bunched in together. And you could think about making a cloud or like a form of rocks or something. So I made all these circles. I'm going to select them all. So I'm going to press V on the keyboard, and that's that top selection tool. So I'm selecting them all, and then we're going to come to the Pathfinder. So if you don't have your Pathfinder open, you go to Window, Pathfinder. So anytime you don't see something open over here that I'm working on, you can just find it in the window. So if you look on my notes example, there is a diagram of what all of these are. So the first one here we're going to use is Unite. So I'm just clicking. I have all of these circles selected. I just am in the direct selection tool, the V. I've dragged a marquee around the whole thing, so all of them are selected. And then I'm going to the Pathfinder, clicking on the first one, Unite, and that makes one shape. And then you can adjust that however you want. You can go to the direct selection and make changes here. So you can do a lot with that. Now we're going to make a crescent moon. And sometimes what happens that people can get frustrated with, if I double click on this, and then the direct selection tool. If I double click on it, we get into this isolation mode. You'll see this top banner here. And if you had other stuff in the background, you wouldn't be able to access it. So you only can access the one thing that you're on. And to get out of that, you just click in this back arrow. Click twice until that bar goes away. So that's something that people can get frustrated with in the beginning. Okay, so we're gonna make a crescent moon. I'm just gonna click on this and delete. And now is a good time to save. So if you haven't saved your project, go to File, Save. Here's another key command you wanna learn. Control on the Mac is Command S. And make sure to save it to your folders. Being organized is key. So I would make a folder for each project for this class. Just press OK. And now you can see before I had saved it, when I made a change, there was a little asterisk. I'll draw something. See, there's the asterisk, and then when I press Control S to save, that asterisk goes away. So when there's an asterisk, it means there's things that have not been saved on your project, and you want to make sure to save it. So we're going to make a crescent moon shape for our illustration. So I'm going to pick a yellow color on my fill, and I'm going to do no stroke. So I'm just going to press the none on the stroke so that there's the red line through it, and that means there's no stroke, it just has a fill. I'm in my ellipse tool, I'm holding Alt and Shift, and I'm getting a circle. And then I'm holding Alt and Shift again and making another circle. I'm pressing the V key, and I want to kind of intersect this circle so we can see right here, this part is going to be my crescent moon. So I'm going to select both. I'm in my selection tool, V, come to the Pathfinder, and we just do minus front. And that's it. That's an easy way to make a moon shape. So other Pathfinder tools, we have the intersect and exclude. Let's see what those do. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to undo, which is Control Z, or Command Z. And a way to see the number of undos you have, you can come down here on the bottom, this little arrow, and you can go to Show Number of Undos. And it shows you I have 47 undos left. Okay, so I'm selecting both, and we can see what intersect means. So this is just showing, let me do Control Z. This is intersect, just leaves what's in the intersection of these two shapes. Oh, see, I got in the isolation layer by accident, and now I can't access anything else when I click out of it, so I just have to come up here and click the arrow. That was something that really annoyed me when I started with Illustrator. Okay, so I'm selecting both of these, and watch the intersection, what's in the center, where they're overlapping is what's left. Do Control Z to undo, and then the last one is exclude, and that is everything but the intersection is left, so the intersection gets deleted. Okay, so let's look at the Shape Builder tool. So you can combine shapes like drawing, just like the Unite Pathfinder tool like we've been using, but it's a little different and it doesn't work for everything. I'm just going to make a stroke on these so you can see what's happening. So I'm going to make a couple more. This is the Shape Builder tool. It looks like two circles and an arrow. So what you do with the Shape Builder tool, first you have to have everything selected that you want to affect. So I'm selecting all of these. Then I'm coming back into the Shape Builder tool, and you can see I'm just hovering over with my mouse, and it's showing me the shapes that are created here, all these little shapes. So to unite shapes, the way we did first with the Unite, you just draw a line, and that combines those shapes. So you can see this can be good for some things, but for some smaller things like all these, we could really miss some of them, and it might be better just to select them all, since you have to select them all anyway to use the Unite tool, to just press Unite if you wanted this whole thing to be one. Okay, so let's use the Shape Builder tool to make a crescent. So I'm doing 1, I'm going to do one over it. So I have both selected. I'm in the shape builder tool and I'm holding the Alt key, and you can see the little plus sign changes to a minus, and I can just delete those. So that's another way to do the crescent moon. All right, now we're going to make some trees. And if your crescent moon, if you don't like the way it turned out, I'm going to press A to get to this direct selection, the white arrow. I can click on this anchor and I can, you can move it around a little bit if you want to get your crescent moon exactly how you want it. You can take these handles. Okay, so I want you to spend time really setting up your designs. Okay, let's move this guy out of the way and let's make some trees. So I'm going to start with a triangle in the polygon shape. You can draw a triangle with the pen tool, but we're going to use this one here. So here's the polygon tool. If I want to just click with my mouse, I can pick the number of sides, so 3 for a triangle, right? And it will make a triangle. I can click and drag the polygon tool, and I can press my up arrow to make more sides and the down arrow to make less sides. So that is another way. Okay, so we're going to make trees, and I am in my selection. I'm going to make it green. Come to my swatches, find a nice green color, and maybe my outline will be black so we can see what's going on. And if I want to make a copy of this, I'm just in the direct selection, which is V on the keyboard. I'm holding down Alt, and see how the cursor changes to 2 arrows? So I'm holding Alt, I'm clicking and dragging out a copy, and then I'm releasing my mouse or your pen first, and then releasing Alt last. And then I can make this bigger. You can adjust it so that I'm holding Alt, clicking and dragging out the copy, releasing the mouse, then letting go of the key Alt. Make it bigger each time and make a couple copies. So obviously you can make as many as you want. You can make them any shape you want. You can start to adjust the size a little bit. And then we're just gonna select all of them and do the unite in the Pathfinder. So there's a tree. You can always come back with your direct selection tool and change all the points. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So you see when I went to my direct selection tool, which is A on the keyboard, these little bullseye things came up. And what I can do with those is I can click and drag, and it makes them rounded. So you can have rounded or pointed edges there, and it affected all of them. And you can adjust how rounded they are. Some of them just have a certain amount they can go, and not all corners have that option, but most do. So I'm doing Control minus to zoom out. Now would be another good time to save. So Control S, save often. Just get in the habit of doing that automatically. So we're gonna make a copy of these trees. So I'm gonna go to V, which is my selection tool, and I'm gonna zoom all the way out by doing Control 0 so I can see my whole composition. And I might do Control minus to see it a little more. So what's nice about Illustrator is you can have it go off the side, and what will show up when you save it as a PNG and put it on your blog is just what's in these black lines. So you can create a nice composition here by having things go off the edge. So I'm selected, I'm holding Alt, and I'm dragging out a copy, and you make it smaller, narrower. You can rotate them a little bit if you want to have a little variation in there. And then usually trees in the foreground would be lighter, right? And stuff in the background is darker. So I'm gonna click here on my fill color, and I'm just gonna come up a little bit in my color picker and find a lighter version of that tone. And then I can press Alt and make another copy, and I can make this one bigger and just add a little variation each time. And I'm gonna double click on here, and maybe this one's really far in the back. make it darker. So maybe you could have like 3 colors, just vary the tone a little bit and make a couple copies of everything. So I'm gonna make like half of my little forest here, and then we're gonna copy that half so we don't have to do it twice. So yours, you're gonna spend a lot more time on it than I have time for right now. So spend time, get yours looking great. Also, I might want to send this to the back. So a way to do that is I'm selected on it, I right click, I go to arrange, send to back. Or you can do control and left bracket. So that goes behind and you can move it around. So you can move stuff forward and behind by just right clicking or doing the control and the black bracket keys. So let me make one more of these guys. And usually it'll stay in the position like this was behind these ones, so it'll stay where it was when you make a copy. But if I want this to come forward, I can right click, arrange. I don't want to bring it to the front because I don't want it in front of the smaller ones, but I want to bring it forward one. Okay, now I can copy this, all of them, hold Alt, make a copy, but I don't want it to look exactly the same. So what I'm gonna do is I can just take this and flip it around. You can also, if you want to do that in a more exact way, so you can just flip it around and then maybe you can rotate it a little bit and adjust it so it doesn't look like it's totally the same. And you'd probably want to bring this to the front, you know, and make it make sense. If you want to make a copy of something and have it flip exactly, so it's an exact mirror of it, I can take a copy of this, Alt, copy, and then I can go to Object, Transform, Reflect, Object, Transform, Reflect, and we want it vertical, right? And just press OK, and that'll flip it exactly. So you could have done that for those half of the trees if you wanted. Okay, so now we're gonna make some mountains. So you're gonna put something probably in the foreground, something in the middle, and something in the background too. So think about what your design is gonna be. So next for the mountains. So there's 2 ways, I'm gonna show you 2 ways to do it. One is with the shape builder tool, and one is with a shaper tool, which you can only use with the tablets and pens, which we have in the computer lab. And if you want the pens for them, I have them. You can come to my office and check them out. So basic mountain shape. We're gonna draw a triangle, right? And then see how this triangle got drawn, and it's kind of like this is kind of the top over here, and that's a little confusing. So I'm just gonna rotate it and I'm gonna zoom in. So I'm gonna make this, maybe I'll make it like a purple color, like a purple mountain. Make it a little lighter. Okay, so I want to make like snow caps on my mountains. So I'm going to draw 3 squares at the top of the mountain, of my mountain peak. So I'm going to come into here, come into my rectangle tool, and with the rectangle tool, same as the ellipse tool, you can hold Shift to make it a perfect square. So there's one, and I'm going to make these, I'm going to come to V, rotate that, and then I'm just gonna make a copy. Oh, I made 2 copies by accident, but I actually want 3 of them. So I'm in my selection tool. I'm gonna make some bigger. I'm in this one. So you're kind of like almost thinking, you're thinking in different ways when you're building this. You're almost like thinking backwards and how you're gonna build these shapes. Okay, so there we go. So to use this with the shape builder tool, we want to select all of them, right? So they're all selected, the mountain and the 3 squares on top that are gonna make my like snow-capped peak. And then with the shape builder tool, we can hold Alt. So I click on the shape builder tool and I can hold Alt and I can come and remove those. And now I can select these with the shape builder tool and make them one shape, right? So I'm going to come into V, my selection tool. I can select on the top and make it white. And that can look like our snow-capped mountain. But this then becomes like its own shape, which you might not like for some things. So I'm going to show you the shaper tool, which is another option. So I'm just Control Z, Control Z, Control Z to get those guys back. And now I'm using my pen tablet. So if you don't have to do this, this is optional. So the shaper tool is this one that's like a pen. It has the pen because you need to use the pen tablet, right? And a circle. So I'm just clicking on that. And what's nice about the shaper tool is you don't have to have everything selected. So let me come in here. So nothing, I don't have this selected. I just click on the shaper tool. It's a little pen and a circle. And I can basically erase the parts I don't want. You can see when I start, I'm just hovering, I'm not clicking on anything. It's picking up all these different shapes. So I'm using a scribble motion and it's erasing the parts that I'm scribbling on. It's kind of fun and a cool thing to learn, and I can just scribble on that, will go away. Okay, so I scribble to get rid of the parts that I don't want, and then I can double click and I can move these around still. So let me change the color so you can kind of see. So I'm clicked on that, I'm holding shift to click on all 3 of these, and I'm going to change them to white so we can see what's going on. So now I'm going to double click on this and I can move this around. I can also give it roundness. And this is nice because if you're making a couple copies of mountains, you can make them all a little different without having to do a ton of work. So now I can come into V, the selection, direct selection tool, and I can Alt copy, Alt, release the mouse first, then release the key. And then I can double click on here and move these so each one could be a little different. So I think that's a nice option to have. Again, this is an optional thing, but it is cool to work with. Okay, so we made a couple copies. I got in this isolation mode again, so I'm gonna come up here and get out of it. So I'm gonna do Control 0 and actually Control minus. So I can have 1, 2, and I'm gonna press Alt and make another copy, and then I just wanna rotate this guy around. So I'm just in the selection tool, and all these I want to send to the back. So just make sure your illustration makes sense and things are set up in kind of a sensical way, whatever that means to you. Okay, so I'm gonna make a background like a sky. Oops, I need to send this, arrange, send to back. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that with the rectangle tool here, and I'm gonna pick the fill color to be a dark blue, and I'm gonna make it a little bigger than my illustration. And now see, when I draw it, it's right in the front, which is kind of annoying. So I can do, you can right click, arrange, send to back, or this other way. Okay, so these drawing modes, see this is a draw behind, so it's the second one down here. And what I did, I just popped that out so it showed me all the options. So here's the middle one here, draw behind. So now when I make my rectangle, it's going to automatically go behind everything, which is nice. And then you can go back to the draw normal where it will draw in front. So I think by now you probably noticed when you're clicking around, it just selects whatever you click on. And having this sky in the back, we might click on it, accidentally move it, and it could get annoying. So we want to lock it. So there's two ways to do that. You can go to Object, Lock, and to lock the selection, you can just press Control-2, and that locks whatever you're selected on. And then you come back to Object, Lock, Unlock All to unlock it. You can also come into your layers, open this up, and you can see that rectangle in the back. You can just press the lock and unlock it. So find whatever works for you for your style. Okay, so we're gonna make a couple stars. So an easy way to do that is there is a star tool, and I'm gonna make it yellow, of course. Probably do no fill, so I'm clicking, no stroke, so I'm clicking on the stroke. And you can just draw out a star. You can change the number of, while I'm still holding my mouse, I can change the number of sides. And then I'm pressing V, I'm selecting it, and we can go to Effects, Distort and Transform, Pucker and Bloat. So you always want to check the preview when you open up one of these effects, and I'm gonna pucker it. That looks a little more like a sun, but that's okay. Let's see what this one looks like, because it has less sides. Distort, Transform, Pucker and Bloat, check preview. So you can make a couple of these. You can also do the pucker and bloat thing. I'm on the star, right clicking, go into rectangle with a rectangle. See how that looks. Effects, Distort, Transform, Pucker and Bloat, preview. And I'm gonna press V, and you can rotate it. You can change the size, and then of course you can hold Alt and make as many copies as you want. So maybe you make like a field of stars, vary them all a little bit, you know, rotate them, make them different sizes. And then you can make a bunch of them and then copy them all. And now you can see I copied the mountains by accident. I can just hold Shift and deselect those to get rid of them. And I can press Alt. Oops. Okay, so I'm copying those, holding Alt, and you can make a copy of that and then, you know, rotate that around and get it looking good. Okay, so you're gonna spend more time on yours. Next thing I wanna show you is changing the color. I'm gonna undo that because I don't love the way it looks. Okay, so alternating the color, which you have to do. Remember, you're gonna make 3 versions of these. So I'm gonna press Control minus, and there's 2 ways you can do this. So you can select all of this. What you want to make sure to do is unlock the background there. So you can select everything and just hold Alt and drag it to a new artboard, or you can copy the whole artboard. So I'm in the artboard tool, and I can just hold Alt and copy this artboard, and the whole thing is copied. And then if I don't need this one, I can just delete it. I can just select on it and press delete, and it's gone. So what I can also do with the artboard, if you want to change the size, like for this one, maybe I'll make it a little longer, like that. And maybe this one will be more like a square. Okay, so for each one, I'm making it a little bit of a different size, and then I need to come out of the artboard tool into the selection tool, and you're obviously going to want to make the background longer for that. And I think I'm going to lock this by doing Control-2. And I'll want to bring my trees down, right? And maybe I'll want to make these taller. So when you adjust the size of your artboard, you're going to have to adjust a few of your elements to make them work. And then for this one, I don't know, maybe you want it cut off, maybe not. Maybe I can just center it a little more, get the moon back in there. This is not a great looking moon. You guys are going to spend a lot more time on your projects than I am. Okay, so we're going to change the color. So I want you to come to the color guide. If you don't see it, you come to window, make sure color guide is checked. So I have color guide up here. There's like this little edit or apply colors. It looks like a color wheel a little bit. So I'm gonna do Control-0 to get to just this one. So this is really cool. If you're interested in color theory, this is really fun to work with. So these different harmonies, these are different color theory harmonies. Okay, so I'm selected on everything in this artboard, and I'm coming to the color theory, and you can see it changes it right away. That one's not working so much. There, monochromatic too, that looks pretty good. And so once I've chosen my color harmony, I can come in here and everything that's yellow is turning this green, but that doesn't really work for my moon, right? So I can double click on this and I can actually pick a more yellowy color for that. So then you can see the moon and the stars turn back to yellow. Now this is everything that was in the colors that were in my composition to begin with. And this is the color it's changing to. So I can double click on here to change that. So see, this is the purple. Those were all the mountains. It's changing to that bright green. Maybe I want that to be darker. You know, that can be a darker green. Okay, so, and that blue looks weird as a green sky. So maybe I can double click on this and make it like more of a blue-green sky. So you can start with one color harmony and then change it. I think a nice thing to try with this is I'm gonna hold Shift and deselect the background. So I'm just selected on the trees and the mountains. I'm gonna hold Shift and get rid of the star too. So I want to remove the stroke, but you can see it's not liking the way I have it selected. So let's see what I can do about that. There, now I'm selected on just the trees and we can see they all have a black stroke. So I can do no stroke and see how that looks. And that gives it a totally different look. And maybe for the mountains, I can remove the stroke too. So you can try playing around with stuff like that, like removing the stroke for some. Okay, so that's one color scheme. And then I'm gonna select on this one and I'm gonna click this again. And let's see, there's so many you can try. You can just play around with it. It's kind of really fun. And then you can make smaller adjustments as you go. And this one actually, the blue was locked, so it stayed blue, but I kind of like that. Let's see if we can get back in here. I want the yellow to really be yellow. So for some things, like, you'll just have to adjust it a little bit. But sometimes it might just work out and you might like the way it looks. So I want you to be intentional and take time with that. And like for this, got to cover up that spot. So maybe we need to make this tree bigger. Okay, so take your time with that and have fun. That can be really fun. So next we're gonna do the distorted text. So I'm gonna zoom in and I'm just gonna kind of get rid of some of these stars on this one. So you're only doing text on one of these. So we're in the text tool, which is just T here. And you're gonna wanna see some of your text options. So I'm gonna come to Windows and I wanna see in type, we have a lot of options. So we wanna see character, move that over here. And we have paragraph, paragraph style. You'll see character styles too. And we also want to see the appearance window. Move that over here. And if you want to close some of these a little bit, you can just double click on them. You can also remove them. Okay, so I'm in the text tool. I can either drag out a text box or just click and start writing. So I'm going to write stars. I'm going to make it bigger. So here's the text size here. You can just click in here and press the up arrow to make it bigger. Oh, I didn't write stars at all. So I'm just holding the up arrow. Let's just delete that. Okay, so we have a couple different options with the text. So we have the character styles here, and we can see the leading. That's if you have 2 words. And I need to make my text box bigger to fit the second word. So the leading is if you have 2 words and it's the difference between those 2 words. So smaller number, there are 2 lines, 2 lines of text. So smaller number, they're closer together. Bigger number, the 2 lines of text are further apart. And then this one is the tracking, and the tracking is the space between the actual letters. So the higher the number, the more space between the actual letters. That's tracking and leading. And then we also have what's called kerning. That's the space between each individual letter. So maybe you wanted the S a little further away from the T, or sometimes different letter forms look better closer together. So all you do to do that is you hold Alt, that's Option on the Mac, and you press the left and right arrow keys. So you can make lots of adjustments here. Okay, we're gonna add some brushes to make kind of artsy text. So if you don't have your brushes open, you go to Window, just get brushes open. And we can add some more. There's a few basic ones here, but we can add more with this menu option. So you just click on that and you open a brush library. Let's try this artistic one. I think this one's good. And it'll just open up in its own window. What we can do is we can just drag it onto here. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, and then when I'm in the selection tool, I can select on this, and in the appearance window, you can see that the brush is here, and I can change it. Okay, so you can add different strokes on here. You can also add multiple strokes. So I'm selected on this here in the appearance window, and I can just make a new one with this little page icon. And then I can change it to a different one, so I can kind of double them up. You can also obviously change the color. So in the stroke here, you can change it to any color you want. And then I can remove the fill. So I'm out of the move tool, I'm out of the selection tool, I'm double clicking on here and highlighting the words, and then I'm clicking on the fill and pressing none. And now you can see, I can still see that there's a fill in there. When I highlight it, it shows up as blue, but when I move my cursor away, it's just the stroke left. So now I'm going to go back into the selection tool. It's kind of confusing because you have to go back between the selection tool to affect this stroke here, the different strokes that you have. And then you have to go into the text tool, which you can get to just by double clicking and highlighting, and that's where you change the fill. So that can be a little confusing, so just so you know. But what's great about this is that you've applied all this craziness and you can still change the text. Okay, so one more thing I want you to see with the stroke is that you can affect the size of it. So I'm clicked on with my selection tool, I'm in the appearance panel, I'm clicking on the stroke, and this whole thing comes up. So I can make the weight bigger, that is not good. See, that is not legible. You won't get points for this. Or I can make it smaller, which is probably what you'll end up doing. You can make it a little more subtle. Don't make it too small so I can't tell what you did, but you can come into each one. Now I'm going to go into the other one, that pink one. I'm just clicking on the stroke and making it a little smaller. So you can see you can really add a lot to this. You can also affect the opacity. You can make it a little more transparent. That's totally up to you. So it can look almost like a stencil. So play around with these different brushes. Remember, to add a brush, you're just kind of dragging it on. And to make another stroke, you're selecting on the stroke here in the appearance panel, and you're pressing this little duplicate icon. And then you can choose from different ones. So you can make as many as you want. Just remember to keep it so we can read it, and so that it's not too overwhelming, but make it cool. Let's see what we want. So the text is still live. Remember, you can change, you can add letters, you can do all kinds of stuff. Now, if you want to change the size of the text, you'll see when you're in the Move tool, when you're in the selection tool, this selects the actual text box. So if you want to change the size of the text, you have to kind of double click, highlight, and change the size here. So I'm clicking on there and pressing the down arrow and change the size here. Or you can make it your own, you can make it a vector shape. So this is still a live text image. If you want to make it a vector image, what I suggest first is making a copy. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So I'm in my selection tool, I'm holding Alt, I'm dragging out a copy. So this is what I was talking about. This gray area is going to hold the original copy of the text that I can come back and edit, but I can make this one a vector object by going to Object, Expand Appearance. And now let me zoom in, my Control+++. Now this is a vector object that I can adjust and change as much as I want, but I can't come in with the text tool and change it. And when I try to double click it, it goes into that isolated layers thing. So it has points that I can manipulate, but it's not live text anymore. So that's just something to be aware of. And that is one case where you always want to keep the original here that you can edit again. So if I want you to experiment and play around with stuff, but make sure before you do that, you keep the original images out here, especially for the text thing, because imagine you spelled something wrong and you would have to go back and do the whole thing over again. So you always want to have this to be able to edit before you expand appearance. Okay, so we are going to save. So make sure you have everything saved, Control S. You have the Illustrator file, and I'm going to look at your Illustrator files to make sure you've done everything correctly, and you're going to upload those to Canvas. But I also need a PDF, because sometimes you might download brushes or you might download fonts or something that I don't have on my computer, and then when I open up the Illustrator file, it will look really crappy and it won't look the way you wanted it to. So to make sure that doesn't happen, we save it as a PDF too. So File, Save As, just call it Adobe PDF, keep it in your folder, keep it all organized, just press Save PDF. And then we're going to save them as PNG files, which you will save to the discussion for this project. File, Export. So the Save As is for the PDF, and then File, Export. We're going to export for screens, and this is automatically going to save each 3 artboard as its own PNG. So we want to save all 1 through 3. You're going to click on this little folder and save it to the place. I'm just saving mine to the desktop right now, but you're going to save yours to a folder for the project. And then the formats here is what you want to adjust. So these are pretty small, and I'm going to save them once as the one time, and then we're going to save it as twice the size, so 2 times the size. And that's the one I want you to save it as, but I want to show you the difference first. So make sure the format is PNG, that should be the default, and I'm going to export the artboards. And then I'm going to do File, Export. You're going to do 2 times, right? This is what you want to do 2 times for you to save it bigger than it actually is. And you might, if you're used to working with Photoshop, you might say you can't save things bigger because it looks really bad, but with Illustrator, you totally can make things, you can blow things up as big as you want. It never loses its quality. It doesn't get pixelated. So we're going to export those. Okay, so now here's my desktop, and we can see the 2 times, it saved 3 different PNGs. And let's just look at, so you can just see the quality is a little better. Get these next to each other. In the one that is two times. So this is the 2x is 2 times as big as the original. So you can just see it's a little bit of a better quality because it's saving it as a PNG file. It's a compressed format. So you want to have the 2 times PNG. So you're going to have these 3 PNGs saved. So those 3 PNGs are what you're going to save to the discussion for this project. Okay, so this is the project in our course Canvas site. So if you're in the modules, it's week 1 and it's P1. P just stands for project. Project 1, shapes and text. And I make it P1 because in the gradebook, if it's really long, it's hard to see. So just an abbreviation. So you'll have the assignment with all of the information. My tutorial will be here. This is just a placeholder now because I'm recording the tutorial right now, so I couldn't actually put it in. So there'll always be a link to the tutorial. Remember, you can turn on closed captions in YouTube, and there'll be a description. There's a description of the whole project. Of course, I'm saying remember to watch the introduction video and read the syllabus. If you haven't done that, you should take time to do that. And those are in this course introduction. I haven't made the introduction video at this point, but it will be here, and the syllabus is here. So take time to do that. And then it's going to be always like an explanation of what the project is. So like I said, if you've used Illustrator before, you know, there's always something new to learn. I'm always learning new things, and I actually like watching beginner tutorials because I find like little tips and tricks of how to, everyone does stuff a little bit differently. So this is the project. We're going to create an illustration using only the shape tools and the Pathfinder and the shape builder. So that's why I need your Illustrator file, so I can make sure you used only those tools. You're going to make the 3 versions like I just made in the tutorial. All 3 are going to have those same shapes, but you'll change the color theme, and then you'll also make slight changes to the size and composition. Then you're going to add text to just one of them. So make sure the text is readable and legible, that we can read it, and make sure it's appropriate and respectful language. And I don't mean like if you use a swear word or something, that doesn't bother me. I'm talking about if you put anything sexist, racist, homophobic, anything that is disrespectful towards one of your classmates or me or yourself, you're not going to get credit for the project. And if you continue to do that, you will get kicked out of the class, because I do not suffer that kind of hateful language in my classroom. I don't think it's helpful for anyone. So just keep your text, you know, appropriate and kind. That's what's most important, and readable. So you're creating the 3 variations of the illustrations. This is a really common way that designers present work to either their clients, or if you're working at a bigger company, if you have an art director, you might show them 3, 4, maybe even 5 different versions of the design, and they're going to pick the one that they like. So I just want you to get in the habit of making a lot of options of designs to show to your clients. I'm not trying to make your life harder. I'm trying to get you ready to be out in the workforce and to do well in this industry. So just always making a couple different versions, I think, is a really smart thing to get in the habit of. So, notes. Okay, don't forget notes. I'm going to put in the course introduction module. So when you come here, I haven't put them up yet, but there will be, if you watch the intro video, I'll talk more about the notes. So make sure to watch the intro video because all that stuff is in there, and there'll be an example of notes there. So make sure you just do step-by-step notes in whatever format you want. You can do handwriting, you can make charts and drawings, you can do a recording of your screen if you want. There's tons of stuff out there that you can do, free screen recording. Really up to you. You can try a different thing for each project. I want you to find your way of working that helped you learn in the future. So I want you to get set up to be ready when a program changes or a program updates, or if you have a job and you have to learn a new program. I want you to find a way to teach yourself. That's really important to me for these classes. So that's what the notes are about. And then the requirements below have details on exactly what should be in the project. Remember that I grade from the rubric, so look at the rubric before submitting. Let's go down to that. So this is the rubric here. And when I'm grading, I'm literally going to click on these if you get the points. So for 3 points, you have complex shapes created with the Shapes tool, Pathfinder, Shape Builder. For 3 points, 3 different color schemes on 3 different versions of the illustration, each a different size and composition. For 2 points, you do the distorted text to one of the illustrations where the brushes are added to the strokes. For 3 points, that you're creative, original, and that you spend time and effort. With design, it's really obvious how much time you spent on something. I can tell right away how much time you spent. So I want you to spend time on this and make it look great. I want yours to be original, not a copy of mine or anyone else's. I want you to really get creative and have fun with this. And then composition and design and color themes. So look at those stuff about the principles of design here. There's a principles of design page. There's some videos about it. There's a link that's a PDF that could be helpful. And you can look up your own stuff, incorporate that into all of your projects, and really what this is about is really being intentional about what your project looks like, how you arrange all the elements in your project, how you're designing it, right? That it's a good design. Okay, so you get 2 points just for uploading the Illustrator and PDF files to this Canvas assignment. You get another 2 points for your notes submitted to this Canvas assignment, the step-by-step tutorials, notes on the tutorial. And this part is really important. It's going to help you. It's more for you than it is for me. And at the end of the class, you're going to have a whole packet of notes so you can refer to them later. If you're working or you're in another class or you're trying to do something for a friend or a client or get your business started and you're like, I remember that thing that I did in the Illustrator class, and you can just look back and find it really quickly. This is so helpful. This is something I wish that someone had taught me, because I had to learn over time to take detailed notes on how to do certain techniques. So it has saved me so much time. And last but not least, your 3 PNGs. I'm saying you can do JPEGs too. Some people prefer those, but in the tutorial, I just showed you how to make the PNGs. Posted to your project discussion, to this project's discussion. So that's a whole nother assignment within this module that you get credit for. But in this assignment, you get credit just for posting it. That's easy 2 points to post it to the discussion. So we'll go over that in a moment, how to actually post to the discussion, and it was in the intro video as well. This is where you submit stuff. Submit assignment. Let's see. So you can choose file. You'll choose the file from your computer, and then you can add another file. So you can keep on adding files. You can upload anything that you want. If you have a Dropbox, you can upload that. You can do a link, whatever works for you. You obviously have to do the AI file and the PDF file here. And then for your notes, I'm really open to what kind of file you have. So that is how you do that. That's always up here, up on the top. Okay, and then I just always sometimes list the skills that we'll be learning, and then the requirements. This is more like a breakdown of everything that should be in here. It's similar to what's in the rubric, but I just have stuff in a couple different places for however your brain works. I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I think it's better to repeat myself than for you to miss something. So just make sure you're reading everything, you're looking through everything you submit here. You can see in our week 1, you have the project, and then we have the practice critique, and week 2, it'll just be a regular critique. So for week 1, P just stands for project 1, just short for project 1. So you can get 5 extra credit points. You are going to just practice for the first time, and even if you don't want the extra credit points or don't care about extra credit, I think it's good to practice this before you're getting graded to work out any kinks. So you're going to post the image of your project in a reply to this discussion. Here's instructions on how to do that. You can use Flickr, but most commonly you'll just upload it to Canvas. It should be a JPEG or a PNG, not a PDF. We want to see the actual image in the discussion. You shouldn't make it so people have to download it to look at it. Again, saving projects in multiple formats is part of a designer's job, so it's a good thing to get in the habit of. Then you're going to reply to 2 of your classmates' posts. So make sure you're replying to the post so it becomes like a discussion thread. Here's a link on how to do that. If you don't know how to do it, you're answering these questions. So write a sentence about why you like their illustrations, and then in a second sentence, state which one. There's going to be 3 options, which one you would pick. So here's the discussion. We press reply, and then you just click on the little embed image icon. It looks like a mountain and like a sun. You don't want to put a link, you want to embed it in. And you go to the Canvas, and this is where you, in the course files, go to My Files. You can upload a file, and here's the files for this first project. Open it. I already had some in there. So you just click on it and update. Now it's going to be really big, so you can just come to the corner and make it a not too enormous size, and then you can post the reply. You can also put some text in there. I'm the test student. And then let's say you're replying, this is another student's project that you want to reply to. You want to reply down here. You don't want to come to the top and just reply and say, hey, test student, I like your project, because it will be hard to find. So under the one you want to reply to, this is part 2, commenting in a reply to 2 of your classmates. So you have to do this to 2 different classmates. Under their picture, you reply and you say, great project, ... oops, and answer these 2 questions, okay? And then post it. So it should show up like that underneath their post. If you have any questions about that, you can let me know. But make sure to practice for the first one where you're not getting graded for it. So everything is in here. Everything is always in the Canvas project. Everything's in there. It's where you submit. Before you submit anything, make sure you just go through this as like a checklist, because this is how I'm grading. So go through this and make sure you read, at least if you're going to read nothing else, read the rubric and make sure you have everything done correctly. Make sure you get all of these points.